From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and All India Radio, this is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell in London, where the news pages describe dissatisfaction, defection and rebellion, leaders battling to maintain support from their own. And that's just the politics of the England Cricket Board's new 100 ball competition. I have no idea about Brexit.
And I'm Charu Sharma for All India Radio in Bangalore, once again having returned from a rather enjoyable school batch golfing reunion in Kolkata, including a round at the Royal Calcutta Golf Club, which is apparently the oldest golf club outside the British Isles. That's for trivia fans. Cricket-wise, it's been very quiet in India as we prepare to host Australia. And of course, there is a lot of talk about the India-Pakistan World Cup encounter, but that's a long story.
Hi, it's Jim Maxwell for the ABC in Sydney. I'm looking at the Christmas fairy lights glowing away outside on the balcony, and my friends over there, Marjorie and Albert, are chirping away in their cage. And somewhere in the northern hemisphere, my wife Jen is up there looking at Aurora Borealis, the northern lights, and it's only minus 32. Here, it's nice and warm, and the Sheffield Shield starts again in the next couple of days.
Jim, never mind the northern lights. What are your Christmas lights still doing on your balcony?
They've become permanent.
Oh, good. And can I also point out that Marjorie and Albert are budgies. You haven't put your neighbours in a cage.
Not yet.
Look forward to hearing about Jen's trip to Lapland when she makes it back okay. Good to know that she's still out there and enjoying herself. Now, this week marked 100 days until the start of the Men's 2019 Cricket World Cup in England and Wales. It's the 12th edition of the global showpiece that's provided more than its fair share of storylines over the years.
Thompson has a wild hit at that one, and Murray throws it, and he's out, stumped! He is out, and Australia have been beaten, West Indies have won, and they are the world champions of this international cricket.
Beautifully placed, a full toss. A joyous Richards, a delighted West Indian contingent here.
Out again. Oh, it could be LBW. It's out!
Oh, no!
LBW, he pulled across the line holding, and India have caused one of the greatest upsets in the history of all sport.
That is the end, 246 for 8, and Australia have won the 1987 World Cup.
Down the pitch, he's hit it high, he's going to be caught, yes! The catch is taken by Rummies, and Illingworth is out. Pakistan have won the World Cup.
One more run for Sri Lanka to win the World Cup. Here's McGrath now. He bowls to Ranatunga, the captain, and nibbles that away through third man. He grabs a stump. The captain has scored the winning run for Sri Lanka, who have won the World Cup for the first time in their history.
India need 4. Koseka bowls, he smashed it high down the ground for 6 to complete one of the great run chases in one-day international cricket, let alone a World Cup. There are fireworks going off. What a way to finish it.
Henry has the ball. Australia need 2 to win. He runs up and he bowls a ball that's heaved away. It's going out through square. They have 1. They'll come back for 2, but it's gone for 4. It's all over. Smith and Watson embrace. Smith leaps on Watson and he punches the air a couple of times. Australia have emphatically won their 5th World Cup by 7 wickets.
Wow, some great memories there of Cricket World Cups gone by. Jim, good to hear your voice at the end there. 2015, of course, that was. What moment stood out for you and Charu as well?
The one that stands out for me, if I think back, is Zimbabwe's win over Australia in 1983 at Trent Bridge. One of the greatest fielding performances I've ever seen. And a fella that you know pretty well from later years was the man of the match for Zimbabwe. And it was an extraordinary game of cricket. And Australia, of course, didn't fare very well in that World Cup. Didn't quite get to the finals, but that win by Zimbabwe was amazing. And Duncan Fletcher was the man of the match.
We talk about the 83 World Cup, Jim. I'm, of course, compelled to also remember that World Cup because it marked such a huge turnaround in the fortunes of cricket in India, particularly. And, the World Cup final, of course, was very special, beating the West Indies, complete underdogs India. But I think the moment for all Indians to marvel at was the magical 175 not out by Kapil Dev against Zimbabwe, the team you mentioned, when India were 26 for 5 or so. So, I mean, what an incredible turnaround to keep India's fortunes going, of course, many other moments. But yeah, that will always be very special because it just marked a pre-1983 India and a post-1983 India.
Well, if I go back 12 years, I witnessed in 2007 that great upset of Ireland beating Pakistan in Jamaica, which was the first major step on Ireland's journey towards eventual test status. And then for me, 2011 and seeing India win in Mumbai and just the journey to get there. You had Yuvraj battling his health at the time. Little did he know that he was subsequently going to be diagnosed with cancer. The fervour in the Wankhede Stadium of a nation who had waited 28 years for that World Cup winning moment. So that's just a bit of a taster, really, of what we've got coming up soon for you, or our Stumped listeners, because we're going to be counting down to the start of the World Cup, which begins on the 30th of May, by naming our top 10 matches from the 11 tournaments of the past. So Jim and Charu, I want you to help me compile that list. So you need to get your thinking caps on, and we'll start counting down from 10 to 1 on the 23rd of March. So just start thinking, you two. Don't give me any answers or any suggestions just yet. So to get us going, though, I will just mention one that might well make the list. The first ever men's final featuring West Indies and Australia at Lord's in 1975. It was won by the Caribbean team thanks to a brilliant 100 from their swashbuckling captain Clive Lloyd.
Being the first World Cup, we had a lot of young players. We had just come back from India. It was my first tour as captain, and we were successful. It was a close series, it's 3-2, so we were bubbling too. And when we started pretty well. We were going, at the rate that we expected, and if we had beaten Pakistan, we had to beat Pakistan at Birmingham to qualify, and we had a bit of a hiccup. As I said, we lost 9 wickets, and we had the last pair was in, and they had to get 60 odd in 14 overs. So I said to the guys, if we bat out the overs, then we should win. And in the middle of the 14 overs, I think Andy Roberts was stranded in the middle, but the guy didn't collect the ball cleanly, so he got home, and we won, and we realized that we have a chance of winning.
Here we are 100 days away from the latest World Cup. How would you describe how this tournament has evolved over the years and become what it is today?
Well, I thought, I always thought the 50 overs game was quite a good game to have. And they wanted to remove it, I suppose, and not have 50 over cricket. And I think that would have been a mistake. And I'm glad that they've kept it. And I think I would like to see a few more associate members playing.
Yeah, because we only have 10 teams playing in this tournament. It's actually shrunk since the last edition. Clearly you think that's a mistake.
Yes, I think so. I think we should I wish we could have just 4 groups and make it a longer tournament, or you don't have to have that long a period in between games. So I think that should be looked at in the future. And if they want to do that, then they can say, well, right, if you want to bring in somebody like Namibia, give them 2 overseas players to give them that little, security of self. And I think it would probably encourage a lot more people to play the game and get involved, because to play in the World Cup, billions of people will be watching. There's a chance of you to show your talent.
Oh, that's the former West Indies captain Clive Lloyd speaking to our Stumped reporter Sam Sheringham at a World Cup event in London's Trafalgar Square. And it's really interesting to hear from a player who was there right at the very beginning, talking about the way, the tournament hasn't really grown since then, and lamenting that as something of a missed opportunity. So if you think about it, there were 8 teams at the 1975 tournament, and only 10 are going to be taking part this year. Well, we put Lloyd's concerns to the Chief Executive of the International Cricket Council, David Richardson, and this is his response.
Well, the beauty about cricket is that we've been able to adapt to the modern world, and it's the only sport really I know of that has 3 formats of the same game. We've got the Test cricket for the traditionalists, we've got the 50-over version of the game, which has been around for a long time now, and then the 2020 format is really our globalizing format. We've got 105 members at the moment. Only 35 to 40 of them at most play 50-over cricket in their countries. So, if you're talking about the pinnacle event and the sort of the showpiece of the format, it makes sense that, 10 teams at a final pinnacle event where there are only 30 or 40 countries playing makes sense. 2020, on the other hand, 105 members all have 2020 status, and that's where we want to grow the number of teams. And pretty soon I think you'll see that the T20 World Cup will move from a 16-team event to 18 to perhaps even 20 teams in the not too distant future.
So that's ICC boss Dave Richardson telling us that the T20 World Cup is cricket's vehicle for globalisation and expansion after Clive Lloyd called for more associate nations to be involved in the 50-over edition, even if that meant, and I thought this was quite a curious suggestion, bringing in overseas players, international teams. So, for example, I don't know, do you have an English player playing for Namibia in a World Cup? Charu, I just want to come to you on a note about India-Pakistan. You alluded to it at the top of the show, but there have been some voices in India, including Harbhajan Singh, calling for India to boycott their World Cup match with Pakistan after the suicide bomb attack that killed more than 40 paramilitary police in Indian-administered Kashmir last week. Now, India has accused Pakistan of being complicit in the bombing, but Pakistan has denied any involvement. And neither country's cricket board has commented at this moment in time when we're recording. But we know, Charu, that cricket has been a huge vehicle in political disputes in the past. Do you think the World Cup match on the 16th of June in Manchester could become in question?
Simple answer, yes. But I must preface my answer with, offering some sincerest condolences to the families of the security personnel who unfortunately could not survive the blast. And that's on behalf of Stumped. But at the moment, the participation is certainly in doubt for that match. And there is a growing and very strident call to boycott every possible contact in all fields of engagement, however difficult or impractical that may sound. But that is the current sentiment. And personally speaking, if there is indeed a total boycott of everything related to Pakistan, obviously India will not play Pakistan at the World Cup or as a part of this boycott. But if it's only a partial or selective boycott, then I wonder if it makes sense to carry on not conducting any bilateral series on Indian or Pakistan soil, as is the current situation. But on neutral soil at the World Cup, it may actually serve to help Pakistan fare better if India give their points up. So that's a little counterproductive. So I'm not so sure about neutral venues and a once-in-a-4-year World Cup.
From the BBC World Service, this is Stumped on All India Radio.
First, gents, I just wanted to pay tribute to Sri Lanka after their remarkable one-wicket victory over South Africa in the first test in Durban. Now, Kusal Perera was the man of the moment. He finished unbeaten on 153 and shared an unbroken partnership of 78 with the last man, Vishwa Fernando, to chase a whopping 304 to win. It was the highest last wicket stand in a successful fourth innings chase in first-class cricket. Here is Perera reflecting on his achievement at the post-match presentation.
I don't know what to say. Especially great effort as a team. Especially low order batsmen, they're giving me a good support. So in that time, I'll believe myself. I did something. I did my part. We are winning as a team. We did our homeworks recent past. This is really special win for us.
I think there were possibly flamethrowers we could hear in the background there whooshing away. Jim, you and I watched Sri Lanka at close quarters recently lose to Australia, and they had been beaten at home by England before that. And behind the scenes, Sri Lanka cricket continues to be under scrutiny of the ICC anti-corruption unit. They have not had a happy time of late, had they? And that just made this feat all the more sweeter for them.
It did, yes. And it was an extraordinary performance. And I'm sure the South Africans are still saying, what happened there? They were 9 down with 78 to get. And I think even when Kusal Perera started blasting sixes off Steyn, they were probably thinking, this won't last. But it did. It was the all-or-nothing last wicket stand, and Kusal Perera's played one of the great innings in the history of the game. So February has been an extraordinary month for Test cricket, with the West Indies winning a series over England. Who would have thought that? And Sri Lanka beating South Africa, the highly rated South Africa. So fabulous performance by Sri Lanka. Let's hope they can keep it up.
Yeah, it certainly warmed at the heart. Charu, coming to you. England women's team are in India at the moment for a one-day and T20 series. And, of course, the one-day series is part of the World Cup qualifying campaign, the ICC Women's Championship. But a pretty big blow for the host because Harmanpreet Kaur's been ruled out through injury. How much is that going to weaken India's chances?
Well, you might remember, Alison, that I've been talking about the lack of depth in Indian women's cricket over the last few months or years on Stumped, which was in relevance to whether we should have a women's IPL. I just don't think we have the depth. Now, that is is on test now with Harmanpreet out, because it is truly a very big blow. I mean, she is an extraordinary striker, and I wonder if there's anybody anywhere near her league. She did turn her ankle. It's a grade 2 injury, I believe, so she's out. And young Harleen Deol, who's only 20 or so, is in as a replacement. I wonder, of course, whether she'll get to play a game. Now, she did play against England as a part of the board president's 11, scored I think 21 and took none for 40, so nothing spectacular yet. But she's young, so the selectors must have seen something very special in her. But there's no question that the Harmanpreet, if I can quantify it, is worth 3 or 4 players in the Indian team. So if India now start losing big time to England, who are very, very good, then it might just be a bit of a dampener, a bit of a setback for the Indian women's cricket team, because especially at home, you want to do well, to raise the profile and not just go down. That will make people just a little sarcastic about Indian women cricketers' chances further on. So yes, it's a very big blow.
No England team has ever won a bilateral ODI series in India. So Heather Knight and her side are chasing a bit of history there in the women's game. And of course, these are the two sides that faced off in that memorable 50-over World Cup final at Lord's in 2017. Do you think that those elements, the fact that it's England, India and the profile of that match, will that help to cut through in terms of giving this one-day series some profile?
Well, there is history now, and India having gone down in a, we were talking about the Big Bash final just a short while back, and the collapse was sort of like that in the final between India and England. India had done so well, 190 and a bit, I forget the details, and they just went down like a pack of cards. So yes, India expects to win against England now at home, but Harmanpreet going is a really big blow. And you know that Mithali is towards the end of her career, so I wonder if she can score quickly enough. So there will be a lot of pressure on Smriti Mandhana, and of late, of course, there's been a fair amount of press about the fact that she is, if I'm not wrong, the world's #1 ODI batter. So that's good news on one hand, but Harmanpreet is just too vital a cog. And if India go down to England here, it's just going to set back Indian women's cricket. It saddens me, the possibility.
Well, it may or may not happen, Charu. The team might come to the fore. Mandhana might rise and be an incredible force. Well, that's all we've got time for on Stumped on All India Radio. You can keep in touch with us on Twitter. We're at BBCWS Sport with the hashtag BBC Stumped. My thanks to Charu Sharma and Jim Maxwell.
And on behalf of All India Radio, a big thank you to everybody listening on Stumped.
And for all those listening from other places, you'll be pleased to know that women's cricket, which has been so strong this summer in Australia, continues when our friends across the ditch are here for the Rose Bowl, which will be on this week.
Yep, can't wait to follow that one. Join us again for more on Stumped next week. Bye-bye.
Stumped is a BBC sport production for the BBC World Service in association with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and All India Radio.